What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp, managing editor of Fightful.com, here for a quick news update for you. Big news coming out of Bellator MMA. They are finally clearing up their Bellator Heavyweight Title situation, at least for now. Given some of these names, I get the feeling that it might be foggy yet again. Head over to Fightful.com for all this news as it breaks. Photos, videos, podcast, forums, events, literally anything you would want in an MMA website we have over there. So here's the news. Bellator announces today that they are starting an 8-man heavyweight tournament next year, consisting of some of the bigger names in their company. Scott Coker told USA Today, quote, "This is going to be something that's iconic for us. Tournaments traditionally are kind of the way martial arts contests happen. Now we get to put 8 iconic brand names in our sport together over a year, and then whoever wins will be crowned the heavyweight champion. I think there are some certain fights that people want to see. Believe me, we're going to have some amazing matchups in this tournament," end quote. And he would go on to tout it a little bit more. Here are the planned entrants. Fedor Emelianenko, former Pride and Mma champion, which don't know how much weight that carries, but at one point it was kind of considered the number 2 title. He most recently lost to Mitrione in pretty quick fashion. Mitrione also in this tournament. Roy Nelson, season 10 tough winner, included in this tournament as well. Looked very, very uninspired towards the end of his UFC run. You have Quinton Rampage Jackson, who was just announced yesterday as being re-signed to the company. This one is particularly interesting because Rampage traditionally fought at 100 or 205 pounds. He has said in recent months, recent years, he doesn't really feel like cutting to 205 pounds anymore. He has had an up and down relationship with both Bellator and the UFC. It seems like whenever he's in one company, he wants to be in the other company. So we'll see how that plays out if he even makes it past the first round. But a former UFC light heavyweight champion definitely has a big name about him. Ryan Bader, a guy who's beaten Rampage Jackson, current Bellator light heavyweight champion. He's got wins over Phil Davis, Rogerio Nogueira, Linton Vassell, OSP, Rashad Evans, Rampage Jackson. So he's seen it all. He was a guy who about a year and a half ago, when he was chirping back and forth with Daniel Cormier, people looked at him and said, okay, maybe he could be the next contender. Maybe it could be him. They didn't give it to him. He ended up leaving Bellator. Right now, Ryan Bader might be the odds-on favorite to win this tournament. He and Matt Mitrione are really, in my opinion, the top two. You have King Mo Lawal, who is a former Strikeforce light heavyweight champion, victories over Rampage, Vassell, Congo. He has fought at heavyweight fairly regularly throughout his career. Like, it's something that he's always been willing to jump up and do. You have Chael Sonnen, who everybody knows his drill. He is a 185-pounder fighting at heavyweight. That's going to be a task because unless he fights somebody like a King Mo Lawal, he is going to be at a serious size disadvantage. Maybe Rampage a little bit, but and he could probably put a Rampage on his back, to be honest with you. So they could go Sonnen versus Rampage and headline a big show with that, and Sonnen would stand a pretty decent chance of winning that fight. Frank Mir, former UFC heavyweight champion, 2-time UFC heavyweight champion. So Frank Mir has not had a good go of it of late, and he failed a drug test that put him out of the UFC, essentially. It led to him asking for his UFC release. He has only won 2 of his last 8 fights. He beat Todd Duffy and Antonio Silva in 2015. He got just obliterated by Mark Hunt in about 3 minutes. He got beaten by Andrei Arlovsky, but he hasn't fought in a year and a half, and it's going to be a little while before he can fight again. So he is an interesting wild card to throw in there. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me how I feel about this. As a guy who runs a combat sports website that thrives on clicks and shares and stuff like that, these names are probably a good thing. From a marketing standpoint, yeah, I understand it. There are a couple of names I sit here and I wonder why weren't they in there? Like a Justin Wren, he's 13-2, he's 3-0. You have Sergey Karatanov, who is not a bigger name domestically than any of these people, but he is a familiar name. Wonder about that one too. Augusto Sakai, a guy who is 4-1-1 in Bellator. than Czech Congo, who, here's the situation. I mean, it's not hard to see. It's pretty transparent. Nobody knows Justin Wren. Not as many people know Sergey Karatanov. Nobody knows Augusto Sakai, and Czech Congo has boring fights. That's pretty much the long and the short of it. And we all know the drill. We know what's up here. But I want to know, do you guys have a problem with this? Do you all have a problem with Bellator booking a tournament like this with these guys when you do have Czech Congo and Augusto Sakai and Haratonov and the Justin Wrens, and even to a degree, and I'm actually surprised they didn't include him, but Bobby Lashley, who is 5-0 in Bellator, has never been anywhere near the career peak as it pertains to in-ring technique as these guys, but he is a pro wrestler. He's got a big name about him. People know who he is, and he's 15-2. I was very surprised they didn't throw him that bone, but at least 5 names. Now, here's the thing. There ain't no way that all these guys make it through this. Nobody gets hurt. So one of those guys I mentioned likely will get put in this tournament or will get put in an alternate bout. I mean, that has to happen, I would imagine. But that's the situation we're looking at right now. Now, if you remember, Bellator has had a really tough time holding on to their heavyweight champions. Cole Conrad retired undefeated at 28 years old because he wasn't making enough money in MMA. Vitaly Minikov won the title, defended the title, then hasn't been back to America in 3.5 years to defend it. So they stripped him of that title last year, and he is fighting in Fight Nights Global or EFN, whatever you may call it, but he's beating like Bigfoot Silva and Peter Graham and DJ Lenderman and people like that over in Russia. And he's probably getting more money in Russia than he would get here, so I don't really disagree with that. I just hope it doesn't affect his potential, like a potential UFC run or something like that. Bellator used to have such good relations with these Russian fighters, and now you just don't see as many. You don't see the Frodos. You don't see Volkov, Ivanov, Minikov, really any of those guys the way that you used to. We will have more on this over at Fightful.com. Of course, we have our UFC Norfolk post show. Let me scroll up here, as you all will see. Sometimes when I got to do these videos in a bit of a hurry, I do it in this format, but this podcast right here, the MMA Industry Podcast with James Lynch, every single day, at least every other day. So I shouldn't say every single day. Somebody is in my inbox asking, how can I get involved in the MMA coverage industry, whether it be as a hobby, as a job, as a career? That podcast is a useful tool. I was on it 2 weeks ago. It also carries over to pro wrestling there. We had Aaron from TSN on there last week talking the MMA 217 coverage week. And then James, who just went full-time covering MMA, did a Q&A yesterday. And that it is a valuable resource. It's on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Fightful.com, and, of course, FightfulPods.com. Guys, until next time, thank you. Subscribe, like, thumbs up, and share. Until next time, we're out.